a few of them have decided that, it's too much. So they have tried to take their life.
Hello and welcome to a special episode of NDI. We're speaking with Jess Foster today, a former counsellor and patient advocate and founder of Surviving Scarred, a support group for former patients of the now infamous Melbourne gynaecologist Simon Gordon. Jess was also one of four former patients featured in the Four Corners expose into Gordon's alleged surgical abuse of endometriosis patients. Jess Foster, welcome to NDI.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about when you realised that Simon Gordon's surgical procedures did not reflect what he'd indicated would happen to you when you went to him for help?
I think that's probably a multi-level question, only because right after I came out of surgery, obviously everyone saw on the Four Corners episode, I came out in extreme pain and what happened there where they had to escalate the pain management all the way up to what the maximum level and so automatically I kind of knew something was wrong. But
Right.
you get told to go home and it takes time and you've just had major surgery and you've got stage 4 endometriosis, so you sort of think, oh yeah, this could be normal. And then as time went on and the symptoms didn't really go away, I sort of still started to think that there was something wrong, but kept getting told it was normal. So you sort of put it to the back of your mind, and people are like, oh, it's not that bad. You've just got to wait, and this and that. And then I guess 2 years later, after everything was exponentially worse, and I was on high dose opiates, and, it was just getting like I could not see it getting better at any point, even though I was going to physio, and physio seemed to make it worse too, which was interesting. And so I thought, it was the nerve damage, and I ended up getting the MRI, which showed the nerve damage. And then I was discharged as a patient of Simon's. And it wasn't until I got my records in December, after I spoke to Four Corners, that's when I really knew that what he had told me and what was going to happen was never the case, and it was never going to happen. I was never going to have the life that he said I was going to have. It was never going to, get any better. The damage was, yeah.
So your understanding was that he was going to remove stage 4 endometriosis tissue, but you believe that's not what occurred.
Well, he told me that he was going to excise endometriosis. He didn't say what stage it was, but after he had done the surgery, he said, oh, it was stage 4. I don't even know how she was getting around. There was so much to take out. And he wrote that my diagnosis after surgery was stage 4 deep infiltrating endometriosis. And he
That didn't appear
removed,
to be the
yeah,
case. Yeah.
but it showed there was no endometriosis on any of the samples that he got.
Right. And just for people who don't really understand how endometriosis works, it's possible to suffer from endometriosis pain without necessarily having tissue that requires removal. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
lesions, the stage of endometriosis, I think that the moment they have stage 1 to 4, um, depending on the stage, doesn't correlate with how much pain you are going to get. So this is why you know, surgery still is the gold standard, even though this
Yeah.
has happened, because someone could have deep infiltrating lesions that are attached to their bowels or, their bladder, or they've fused some other part of their body, but they may get no symptoms whatsoever. So they have no idea
Hmm.
until one of the other organs starts to break down and they finally get problems from that.
Hmm.
So yeah, and
Yeah.
someone like me who had, mild endometriosis to start, I did get pain.
Yes.
So it's yeah, it doesn't really reflect, like the lesions and stuff don't really reflect the pain you could get. It's depending on the person.
Hmm. So how did it come about that you became an advocate and spokesperson for Gordon's former patients?
It sort of just happened. before the Four Corners episode came out, I was talking to one of the producers and I said that, I thought we needed a space to be able to come together and talk because it was such a, unprecedented situation that had happened. So the outside world and, now with social media and things like that, you've got the court of public opinion and people
Yes.
will insert their whatever they think, even if they don't really know what the situation is. So I thought to myself, oh God, we're going to need somewhere like that and just to support each other and just to sort of connect. And so I think 2 or 3 days before the episode came out, I created the group and it sort of blew up from there. At first, I was not sure because the episode hadn't come out and it was only sort of, trickles of whispers around the community and things like
Hmm.
that. And I was kind of scared, like, oh my God, what if I'm the only person going through this? And,
Mm.
and then the episode came out and it was just hundreds, and even thousands of women that had been impacted.
And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? That the extent of this, I don't think, even when the episode aired, I
Oh,
don't think people realized how many
oh,
um,
absolutely not. I
people
really
were
don't
affected.
think that
Mm.
anyone knew the magnitude of what was going to happen and, the fallout and
Yeah,
what that was going to be.
yeah.
It's
And
truly,
so you, together with some other people from, who are in a similar situation in terms of having been former patients of Simon Gordon, went to both a state or had discussions with both state and federal government, I believe,
yes,
about what needed to be done to assist these people, these
yes.
former patients. And I believe that some promises were made, or certainly concern was expressed both publicly and obviously to you privately.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though the promises or what has actually eventuated reflects what was required?
Initially, it did. So when we went to see, we actually had a small group of the girls from the support group. We made a little advocacy group and we went down to meet with Jacinta Allen and Marianne Thomas and a few other people. I think it was Sally, the head of Women's Health Victoria, and the head of the phone line and everything
Yeah.
like that.
And Marianne Thomas was the health minister.
Yes, she
Yeah.
was the health minister at the time for
Yeah.
Victoria.
Hmm.
So that
Yep.
is, yeah. And they listened. They were, we all shared stories. I've never been to a high profile political trauma dump, but it was very interesting. We all, Jacinta even cried a little bit at some points. I think she's, suffered from endometriosis herself. So I think it resonated
Oh,
with her. And
yes.
some of the stories were quite heavy.
Yes.
So it was very emotional. And yeah,
Yeah. So that's interesting because I feel as though personally, having watched what transpired shortly after the Four Corners episode, as I know many people have seen, both Jacinta Allen and Mark Butler publicly were, very sympathetic and I believe did want to do the right thing. However,
yes,
I think what's happened since, for whatever reasons, probably bureaucracy and whatever,
yeah.
that a lot of the things that are needed perhaps aren't really being offered to these former patients. And just to be clear on that, I think that it's important for people to know as well how this has affected people's lives. It's not just a matter of, something going wrong during surgery, which can happen to anybody, at
Yeah.
any time.
Yeah.
It's a matter of systematic failure, I think,
Yes.
and the fact that so many of these women emerged from their surgeries with Simon Gordon um, severely worse off than they were prior. And
Yeah.
that has certainly been the case, and that a lot of them, their situations have, their quality of life has decreased, as certainly as yours has, I believe.
Yes. Yeah. A lot
I'm
of the
not trying to
women
put
have.
words in your mouth, but yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah. What kinds of things have the patients received so far, but what do they need as well?
So they do have the phone line set up, and they did say that they had
So
set
this
up
is
and this is the
this is a
Victorian government set
yeah,
up the
like a
five
hotline.
clinics, yeah, the hotline and the five clinics and things like that, which, in theory is great. And that was, a wonderful first step. But I think the problem now is, how do the patients know that these are going to be truly independent reviews and they are going to actually get the help that they need, if that makes sense? Because you've
Yeah,
got, you know, you can't have people going to these follow-ups with people directly connected to Epworth or Simon Gordon, or, the people that have harmed them. And you also can't have them being referred back to places like Epworth and, the place that has, had Simon Gordon who harmed them and things like that. It's very
mm,
triggering. So I think now what needs to happen, and I'm very happy to have more meetings. Mark Butler was lovely in the meeting and he was very interested in seeing us again. Life happens, and, there has been political changes since then and personal changes. So we'll have
mm,
to sort of navigate that now. But
yeah,
I think, going into this new Victorian leadership and on the federal side as well, we need to really focus on extending the care that the former
mm,
patients are getting, because I think the current reviews and things, they end in September. So I think that definitely needs to be looked into. And, if there's more funding that needs to happen there to extend it. And we also need some sort of way to be able to tell that it is truly independent, as I said before, because you
we're
can't.
talking about an inquiry now.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
no, I'm talking about like the health navigators
Oh,
and
the
people
health
going
nurse.
to
Sorry,
have their
sorry. Okay.
follow-ups.
Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so basically, the Victorian government set up a hotline for former patients, as well as a complimentary medical review
yeah,
or appointment with a professional to have their cases, assessed or whatever, to see what
yeah,
is
reviewed.
required. Yeah, reviewed. So Epworth, of course, set up, we'll get to what we think is needed in a moment as well, but Epworth has set up an internal review. I believe the terms of reference have not been released, although they have said it's an independent inquiry. Is that realistic? Do you think that there should really be a government-led inquiry?
I do.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, at the end of the day, that is probably the only thing that's really gonna get to the crux of the matter. And I don't think, like, Epworth can say that they're doing their independent review and everything, but if they're not releasing the, terms of reference, and they've already said that it's not actually looking into anything that, my former gynecologist did, it's looking at other things. So what's that actually going to change? You know what I mean? How do you know that it's actually going to change anything without?
That's right, because of course this has gone on for some time and they did not act on complaints about Simon
Yeah,
Gordon or
allegedly they
whatever.
did not act on
Yeah.
complaints.
So I think that's a very important point to be made there,
Yeah.
that is it realistic for the hospital that enabled this to happen, to now be doing their own inquiry? So
I
yes,
I personally don't think it is.
no, neither do I. And so, what are the sorts of things that the patients are dealing with at the moment, that they need
Oh,
help with?
well, the majority of the people have court cases, but there is still a large cohort of women who are afraid to seek out legal advice because they don't understand a lot of the legal side of things, and they're afraid that they'll get taken advantage of too. So
Yeah.
we really do need like an independent professional, I guess, to help people navigate that side of things. Because I'm not a lawyer. I can only do basic things. Like I'm doing the best I can to help people, but like I said, I'm not a lawyer, so I could only go so far.
You can't advise. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't advise. I can
Yeah.
tell people which, law firms are taking on cases and things like that, but I try and stay very neutral too because I don't want to lead anyone
Mm.
I think everyone should, go to multiple different firms and, speak to the different firms and feel out who they like and things like that. But it's very intimidating for people, and having to tell your story over and over again is really traumatic.
Mm.
And that was one of the things that the care navigators that the hotline set up were supposed to help with. But I think that is something that has fallen short. And people still are having to tell their story multiple times to the different providers when they have had
Mm.
the interviews and things like that. And
And
it's just at
also,
the
do they
cost.
know who to go to? Do they have people willing to take on their cases?
That
Are
has,
there enough specialists to deal with it at the moment?
when looking at people's medical side of things, uh, that is something that I honestly don't even know if I can answer because so many people have had trouble finding anyone that will want to go near this situation, which is really sad because the people that were harmed or the people that had these surgeries, they are not to blame for this. And it's sort of like they're being shunned, if that makes sense. Like everyone's like, oh, I don't want to comment, or oh, I can't look at
Yeah.
this, or, even some people's, long-term GPs are now saying that they don't want to, touch it or anything like that, which is really, really devastating. And, it just, I think the girls have been through enough.
Yeah.
And then to have, these people, other people in the medical industry that are supposed to look after them and care and help, they're sort of getting, you know, stonewalled by that as well. And you sort of think, well, what can I do? And that sort of leads into the psychological side of things, which has been devastating for everyone involved and not just the patients, but you've got the domino effect on patients' families and even the patients that might have seen Simon that had good outcomes, like they're still going to be questioning, everyone's going to be questioning everything. And even people outside the situation that weren't patients of Simon Gordon, how do you trust your professional when there was someone who was so highly regarded and now this has happened? Like
Yeah.
it's just I don't have the words to describe the devastation.
And okay, so and there's also the cost involved because of course a lot of these things are simply not covered by Medicare
No,
or even health insurance, private health insurance.
no.
And we're talking about, for example, a specialist appointment, I think on average at the moment for an endometriosis patient is about $500.
Yes, yeah.
I think that's common
And
amount to
this
charge.
this is another problem because if the patients don't have the money to do these follow-ups, they're not going to be able to get the care they need. And I think that is something that the government does need to step into
Yeah.
without being too
No, no, I
forward. I
agree.
do think
Yeah.
that they need to provide some sort of monetary support to
Yes.
these women
Yeah.
just to be able to, because it's going to be lifelong, some of the damage. And, how do you pay for all of these things
Yes.
on a long-term basis and when it wasn't your fault? You
Yes.
know what I mean? Like you didn't ask for this, you didn't know this was going to happen. And yes, things can happen in like there's always risks in surgeries, but the situation as it is now with what has happened and the level of damage that has been caused and the ongoing costs that people are going to have, it's just insurmountable. And, you know, it's just sad to think that if you're not wealthy enough or you don't have the money to cover it, you're just going to get worse because you're not going to get the help you need.
What is the ideal? I know there's no real solution because all this has already happened to people, so it's not like we can take that back.
No.
But moving forward, what are the key things that need to be done here?
Moving forward, we, the patients, still need a better navigation system for the healthcare to get their records reviewed. They need better help when it comes to the legal side of things and navigating that and the information. They need independent information if they don't want to sort of trust a law firm that they've, consulted with. They need monetary help for scans and, follow-up appointments. And it's not just, gynecologists that people need now. There's colorectal surgeons and, bowel surgeons and things like that. And
Neurosurgeons and
neurosurgeons,
yeah, yeah, psychologists or psychiatrists.
absolutely trauma-informed psychologists. That is a massive one. That was a point that I did make multiple times in the meetings with
Yeah,
government officials because it's just, the PTSD that people have, I know that a lot of the girls aren't sleeping properly, like they get nightmares. A few of them have tried,
yes,
a few of them have decided that, it's too much. So they have tried to take their life. And I just, every night I go to sleep, I'm so afraid that I will wake up the next morning and one of the girls are not going to be there anymore. And I just wish I could do so much more, but I will keep pushing forward. And there's so many brilliant advocates out there in the endo community who are really, you know, doing great things for us in the way of getting the correct information out there and trying to change how people see endometriosis because it can't be kept as just a period problem and it
no,
needs to be seen as a full body systemic disease and it doesn't just affect women, it affects everyone. It's been found in males, it's been found in unborn fetuses. It's everything sort of needs an overhaul and there are great sources of information out there. It's just getting everyone sort of on the same page. And yeah, we just need we just need more than what has happened. And I mean, Mark Butler was lovely. Everyone has been lovely. That is not the issue. And they have all, and I understand that, things with the government, they take time, but it has been 6 months.
yep,
And it was lovely words that they said at the beginning, with all the promises and things like that. I just don't want it to turn into just that. I don't want it to turn into a sort of, we're going to do this and they sort of do one thing and then go, oh, that's enough because
yeah.
it's not. It's really not.
And also to ensure it doesn't happen again. I think,
And to
I think,
exactly there
and the
needs to
biggest
this,
way to do that, I think, is an inquiry, a government-led inquiry, as you
I think,
suggested.
yes.
Yeah,
I really do think that it is time to change.
yeah.
We need to be seen as people because we are, we're not just, I don't know, we're not just commodities
Not
to,
just a
be
disease.
used
Yeah,
or, yeah,
yeah,
we are
yeah.
people with lives. And I think that we need to be treated that way from now on.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jess, for speaking with us today.
That's okay. Thank you for having me.